What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another drawing tutorial Patreon request. Shangri Frontier. This is the main character. The bird head guy. I can't remember what his name is. But let's draw it. Landscape page, pencil eraser, hit pause if we go too fast. We're going to start with his head. So, bird beak. Yeah, so big one. So we'll go down the front, basically, this way. Curve, he's got like a little, it's a double bump, right? So a small bump on top and then a longer bump down there. So then this side we will go down like that, and then it goes in this way. It reminds me of a shoe bill. Beak goes in here, it curves around and down, and then he has a nostril sort of up at this end. Right, so his eye and eyebrow. So he's got a very big eyebrow. So we'll go the eyebrow first. It comes up here like a hook, and then we'll spike it at the end and bring it back down into the front. The frown line there. So he's looking up to the front. So we'll go top eyelid line. So we're just curving over here. Okay. Bottom eyelid, so it's just a round sort of broken line like that, and then he seems to have a little bit of a like another hook coming out the back here. It's like a light blue or something. Some little extra eyelid lines on top. So an iris looking up to the left, right? So it curves down from the top eyelid line, rounding up to there, and then his pupil sort of up there somewhere. Da da dum dum dum. Okay, so his eye on the other side, you can't really see. We can see eyebrow, and it kind of goes up because his head is turned away, and it's smaller than the other side, you know, because his head's 3/4 pose. So that means like a quarter of his face is missing, basically due to the perspective of the head turn. We can see like a little bit of an eyelash sort of there, and then connect it up to his brow, and then put the eyeball sort of line in there. So top of his head, so coming from this eyebrow, we're going to go that way, and then we will bump it around the top here. Okay. He's got a cluster of feathers at the back, but say the back part of his head, sort of there, and all the feathers come out in this gap. So I'll just draw this line down like so. And then there's like 6, I think, feathers just drawn in here now. So we'll go spiking the 6 feathers. then okay. Now, so the rest of his feathery mask, so like his neck starts sort of there, it's quite wide, and then we get all these sort of spiky little feather textures coming out the front. And it kind of comes across here, so we'll go and then down. It all comes across his back. Okay, and then there's like some texture feather lines just on his head here as well. So say like here. And we'll do some sort of like coming around this way as well. As much of this as you'd like now, really. That's probably enough. So we're going to try and get the two swords in. But there's some anatomy and lots of scars. The scars aren't drawn in with black line. They're kind of done with color, but I'll draw them in lightly just so we can sort of see them. Right, so his shoulder and arm, I guess that's a good place to start. So his shoulder is like just underneath these feathers here. So it goes sort of touches it here, bumping there. And this joins his bicep. Another bump like so. So they do this, there's a gap basically between the shoulder and the tricep. They don't draw in like the shoulder muscle, it like joins his scapula is what it's called. So like down here we have a tricep line. Like so. And then they do maybe just two sort of curved lines here, just for maybe where his deltoid muscle would be as well. Then they seem to do sort of a line like this. And then we go down basically to his elbow. And then up to the forearm. Which goes up that way. And the other side of it's kind of like sticking out here. And that's his wrist, right? So, you know, wrist sort of lines usually look like that. So it's there's a hand here and there's a sword going that way, and the other hand comes across the body there. But we'll finish this section of anatomy first, and then we'll deal with hands and stuff. It's a whole other ball game. So his back, so it's fairly big. So we'll go so like there maybe. And we'll just bring it down this way to there. And like his stomach is here, so this is like the width of his torso. And then that way. So we do have some anatomy lines in here as well. We got his like jeans or his pants kind of there. Of course, goes around a few more room, goes around to the front. So his shoulder blade lines, they just draw it kind of like here. It's like connected to your armpit area. And then his spine seems to come out from this and then curves that way. And then his sort of scapula on that side. And then a spine line there, make some more muscle lines, kind of like that. So it's not, they don't draw everything in, you know, they just leave it up to your imagination. Kind of following the shape of his back, basically. Okay, so we can see sort of some of his chest here, not a lot. And his other arm going that way. So there is, so he's a handle of a sword there. I guess we have to do this hand first and then try and get the other arm in. So your hand basically has this sort of bumpy area where it joins the wrist bones here, right? So they draw it sort of like this. And then it'll curve sort of there. And then that way. And then we have his thumb at the front. So it'll go wrapping around here. And there's a bit of a thumbnail here. So hands are tricky, so take your time. They're always difficult. They never get easy. And then we can see some of his knuckles in behind. Four of them. And we got the pinky, ring finger, pinky goes in behind, middle finger, and the handle of the sword just comes out here and it's sort of sitting into his shoulder. It's kind of got a round bulb at the end of it. Right, so, and you'll have a couple of fingernails just drawn in loosely. Like that. And then, of course, there's a big sword going that way. But I'll get the other hand and arm in that comes across here. So we'll go, say, this way. There's like an armpit line there. And then this comes across here. You kind of like a wrist line there. And this hand so goes out, down. And we get some knuckle lines down at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the index finger curves around the handle of the blade on the other hand. And then we get knuckles on the top. Kind of drawn in like that. So each of these is a finger, so we'll just add some sort of finger lines just in the where you see a point, see? And then the handle of this sword comes out this way. Boom, boom. Right, kind of curves around the bottom. And then we got his thumb here. Thumbnail. Right, so swords now. Swords are always tricky as well because they're kind of man-made objects. And these are like real elaborate curvy ones. So we'll do this one because it's in front, and then that one goes behind, and then I might add some scars. So the top of this handle is here like this. And it's got a curve and a jewel. You could use a ruler if you wanted, you know, to get the sort of the blade straight, but it is slightly curved. But maybe just for ease, keep it simple and all that, we'll just do that. There is a slight bend in it, but it's only slight. And then curve that way. Bit of a chunk taken out of this. And then this comes down here. And then we'll curve that there. And there's a bit of an edge line on this. And then this part of the blade is like bumpy and dotty. I don't know, it's real textured anyway. It's kind of like red dots. There isn't a line there, but I'll just do it just so we can make it out. So this sword is a bit more complicated. So it's everything's sort of elaborate. So it's got like a bit of a spike sticking out here, square end, and then it goes back. And then we seem to have a part where the blade comes out. So it's like a little V or a check mark. And then the bottom comes down back into his hand there. Now we want to make this look a little bit three-dimensional. So it looks real flat at the minute, right? So to do this, we'll give an edge line there. There's a little bit of an angle edge on this as well. And it looks like it comes around the thumb. And there may be an interior to this, like another section. It's very dark, so I'm not quite sure, but I'll just do a line like that and maybe add a shadow. And then we seem to have another sort of edge down there. And there's a snaking sort of S line. Like so. And then, right, so the blade itself, so we kind of start it like this, coming out of this check mark area, right? And it goes there, and then we spike here. So very bendy. Right, and then it comes back this way. Curves here, goes underneath this one. kind of an edge going the whole way around it with some little 3D lines. Like that. Right, and then sort of scars and spikes and stuff. So you can do as many of these as you want now. I'll just give a general feel, because there's crazy amounts up and down his back and everything. What happened to this guy? I haven't watched Shangri. Some people are devastated. Okay, here we go. Shangri-La Frontier. Thanks for the support on Patreon, Sean. See you next one. Bye.